Okay, boys and girls, we are going to talk about literary elements. Now, literary elements are the pieces that make up a story. All stories have these literary elements. Now, I know that you have been introduced to these literary elements this year and in years previous to this school year. So let's talk about these literary elements. Now, let's look at them. We have characters in every story. The characters are the people and animals in a story. When we're thinking about the characters, this is what we need to be thinking about. We need to think about, what do they say and think, Reese? What do they do? What do other characters say and think about them? Now, we have to think about the most important characters in a story are the major characters in a story. Each story will also have minor characters. Now, while those characters are lesser characters, they are still important in the story. Who's a major character in Marisol, McDonald doesn't match? Who's the major character, the most important character in that story? Eli?
Marisol.
Marisol, she's the major character, the most important character in that story. Who is a character who's maybe less important in the story? We would consider to be a minor character. Who's a minor character in that story? Who's a minor character?
Narrator.
Yes, a narrator would be a kind of a minor character, yes?
Miss Apple.
Miss Apple. And is Miss Apple important in the story?
A little bit,
Yes, she is important in the story.
but not as much as Marisol.
Not as much as Marisol, but she does something very important for Marisol, correct?
Yeah.
Yes, she does something very important for Marisol. Now, we also have the setting. The setting is where and when the story takes place. And it affects the plot because certain events happen in certain settings. It affects the plot by creating its mood. Where does Marisol, McDonald, doesn't match take place? Where are some of the settings of that story? Nina?
School.
It takes place at school, yes.
At home.
At home, yes.
The puppy pound.
The puppy pound, so it takes place in different places, there's different settings. Stories don't necessarily take place in one setting. They will take place at different settings. They'll take place at different settings. Now, some stories may take place in one setting. There could be one setting. Now, a setting will also refer to the time it's taking place. It could take place at a certain time of day. That also refers to the setting of the story. Different times of day. It'll also refer to the time and history the story is taking place. Now, when we're thinking of Marisol McDonald doesn't match, is that when in time do you think that story is taking place? Allie?
I think it's taking place and in the time, like.
Do you think it's taking place in the past? Is it taking place in the future? Is it taking place now in current times?
Yes.
Yes, it's probably taking place like in pretty current times. Some stories take place in the past. Do you know any stories that you may have heard of that take place maybe in the past? Reese?
Diary books.
No, the I would have to do with first person. That's what you're thinking of. Yes, what do you think, Becca?
When it says has an ED at the end.
Yeah, well, we're talking about past tense, but we are talking about books that take place in the past in history. Books that may take place a long time ago. Books that take place a long time ago. Nina?
Social studies magazines.
Yes, those may have taken place a long time ago. Are there any books that you have read that have taken place a long time ago? Leah?
A book about George Washington.
A book about George Washington, because he lived a long time ago. So that would be a book where it's set in the past. Sophia? I Survived the Destruction of Pompeii. That is a book that took place a very, very long time ago. So that would be an example of a book that is set in a time period that is in the very distant past. Yes, Eli.
The Bible.
The Bible, yes, the Bible. That happened a very, very long time ago, so very good. That happened in the past. Mike?
Abraham Lincoln.
Books about Abraham Lincoln, those books, that is all happened in the past. Very good. Lauren?
Once I read, my brother read a book about Walt Disney World, and I read a book about Walt Disney.
Yes, a book about Walt Disney because he lived in the past. So, Allie?
One of those books that told us what people had to do a long time ago, and like wear wigs, and and stuff like that, and cowpox.
Yes, has any of you read, I don't know if any of the girls like American Girl, have an American Girl doll. And they have books that go with the American Girl dolls. And some of them were like, when my daughter was little, Felicity was the first American Girl doll. And she was a colonial doll, which was colonial times. And so I think on my shelves I might have the books about Felicity. And so those books are set in the past. Or, has anybody ever heard, there was a TV show on called Little House on the Prairie. And I don't know if anybody has seen Little House on the Prairie. It's probably on a TV station. And there are books, Little House on the Prairie, and those are set in the past. So those would be an example of books that are set in the past. Now stories can also be set in the future, way in the future. Those would be science fiction books. Those would be books like, I'm trying to think of some science fiction books. Yes, can you think of some?
If I built a house, school, or car, because like cars can't fly now.
Yes, if you had a story that had flying cars in it. There would definitely be a science fiction type of book. Yes.
Robotics books?
Yes, well, robotics are kind of real if they really work. But if it would be like there were robots all over interacting with people, that might be more of a science fiction type of book.
Or cyborg books.
Yes, cyborg books like that. Those would be that type of book. Okay, so now boys and girls. So that setting can have an impact on the story. Then we have plot. The conflict is part of the plot. The conflict is the main problem that the characters face. What is their problem? We call that the conflict. Everybody say conflict.
Conflict.
You have a conflict. That is the problem. And then we have the resolution. The resolution is how the problem is solved. How the conflict or problem is another word for conflict, how that is solved, how they resolve it. Now we also have the events in the story. Those are the things that happen in a story. Those events are how a character is changed, how the events affect the mood, and how they build the plot. All those things go into a story, boys and girls. Here's what we're going to do. We, boys and girls, are going to do a literary elements puzzle. We've got the characters, the setting, the plot, and the events. And so what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you draw something for each of these pieces of the puzzle. Okay? And so you're going to draw characters, some characters from the story. You are going to draw a setting from the story. You're going to draw something from the plot. You're going to draw and color it. And then you're going to draw an event from the story. From Marisol, McDonald doesn't match. This is from Marisol, McDonald doesn't match. That's what we're going to do. Yes?
In characters, do you have to put down Marisol and her brother and like Miss Apple?
Well, I want you to put down a few characters, so draw a few of the characters. Marisol is definitely someone you want to have in this, correct?
Yes.
So she is the main character. You definitely want to have Marisol. Because she's a main character. So you're going to draw several characters, several of the important characters in here. Yes.
How much characters can you draw?
I don't know how many you're going to fit in there. You have to draw more than one, because it says characters.
Can you draw 2?
2 or 3. 2 or 3. Yes.
Can you just write the name so I
No, you just can't do that. Yes. Okay? Then you're going to draw a setting from the story. You're going to draw an event, something that or a plot, something with the plot. Or we'll have you write part of the plot. How about that? Let's do this. We will draw the characters. We'll draw a setting. Who's listening? Are you listening? Draw the characters, draw the setting, write the plot, and write the events. Okay? Write a sentence or 2 here, write the sentence or 2 here. I think that would make better sense. What do you guys think?
Yes.
Yes. So, what are we drawing, boys and girls?
Characters.
Setting, and then we're writing the bottom 2. So, draw, write. So we are going to draw the characters, we're going to draw the setting, and then we're going to write the plot and the events in the story. So you are going to need your reading book. So I'm going to send the first row for that, or this first row if it's not in your desk, which it probably is not supposed to be, it should be on the shelf. And we may begin that.